This is Wild About Utah.
West Nile virus found in Mendon. This warning, printed in big block letters, definitely caught my attention when I walked into the Mendon Post Office. The poster included a picture of a mosquito and a message saying, "Please take the necessary precautions to protect yourself and your loved ones." The warning came from the Cache Mosquito Abatement District. Curious, I called them up. I found out that their staff goes out once a week and activates 18 mosquito traps at rural locations throughout the valley. They invited me to go along and see how they collect mosquitoes. I was surprised to find that it's carbon dioxide that attracts the mosquitoes. The sun was setting when we pulled up to the first stop and found the cylinder of CO2 already in place on the ground. The first step was to turn on the CO2, a slow flow, emitting about as much CO2 as a human exhaling. Next, they snapped a battery into place on the underside of a metal disc that was hung a few feet above the CO2 cylinder. This disc, which looked a lot like a broad-brimmed man's hat, also held a small fan, which now started whirring. The last step was to tie on a white mesh bag below the fan. The trap was now emitting an enticing trail of CO2. When the mosquitoes arrived, the fan would blow them into the mesh bags. Early the next morning, it was time to turn off the CO2, retrieve the batteries, and the mesh bags. Back at the lab, the bags made a quick trip into the freezer, which killed the mosquitoes. Then the mosquitoes were emptied into a black tray and counted. Of the varieties of mosquitoes in Cache Valley, only the culex carried the West Nile virus. To the trained eye of the staff, it was short work to separate the culex from the rest. These mosquitoes were then packed into small vials and sent to the lab in Salt Lake, which runs the tests for the West Nile virus. We now know that West Nile, like malaria and yellow fever, is transmitted by a mosquito bite. And with the help of high-powered microscopes, we can see that a mosquito bite is actually the complex work of 6 needle-like shafts housed in the female mosquito's protruding mouthpiece. 2 shafts with serrated edges saw through the victim's flesh, 2 hold the cut open, and 2 are inserted into the cut. These last 2 function like straws, one to suck blood up and one to carry down anticoagulant saliva to keep the blood flowing. If the mosquito has previously bitten an infected animal, the saliva will now transmit the virus to us. For most people who become infected, West Nile feels like a bout of flu, but for 1 in every 150, it can lead to serious neurological problems. So now that we've been warned, we should be wise to take some precautions. Drain any stagnant pools of water in your neighborhood where mosquitoes can breed. And wear long-sleeve shirts and long pants after dusk. The culex fly at night. And let's not forget that the valley bats are helping us. Some bats can eat as many as 500 mosquitoes in an hour. But that's a story for another day. This is Mary Hears, and I'm Wild About Utah.